Sean here. We're going to talk about ear infections today, and really childhood ear infections. It's something you see a lot throughout the year in children when they swim, when they don't swim. You see it in the winter time. They'll get kind of a head cold and the ears will be bothered. If they're real little, you'll notice they're tugging at an ear all the time. It'll get kind of red and irritated. Now, medically, the things that we do for ear infections, they'll use drops, antibiotics, things of that nature, and really with hit and miss results. They kind of are self-resolving a lot of times. 10 to 14 days seems to be the norm. But there's other things you can do. They can be very painful to a child. They can be very painful to an adult. And I've seen this in my practice now, countless times over the past decade or so. It's really relatively easy. They're not hard to fix. They're easy to do, and there's a lot of therapies you can do to help them. The antibiotics and things that are out there and what we do with those, sometimes helpful, sometimes not. The problem you run into when you do antibiotics is now you're upsetting that gut. You're upsetting the GI tract. And a lot of people, when they take antibiotics, they end up getting heartburn, or they'll end up getting bowel problems or stool issues, or it's funny, they'll take the antibiotic to deal with an ear infection, and as soon as it's all gone, all of a sudden now they get a common cold that kind of creeps in there a few days later, because we've learned that it weakens the body a little bit and it disrupts your GI tract and that flora in your gut, and now you sometimes end up with a worse problem. So although there's times for those and we need those, there's other things you can do, and here are some of my favorites. So when it comes to an ear infection, really nothing is more important in my opinion than adjusting. We know that the ear canal itself and the TMJ joint in the jaw and the upper atlas, or the top vertebra in the neck, and the skull bone itself, how those are positioned, and if they get malpositioned, turned against one another, create friction points, it sets that environment up for problems. We've seen this year in, year in, out with ear infections, hearing issues, tinnitus, all these things that when you just, vertigo's another one, when you just rebalance the anatomy in the upper part of the body there, great things can happen. So I like to start there. And kids are just as easy to adjust as an adult, as a pet, as you name it. You can do all kinds of good things. And it's really wonderful to see what happens, because children are very forthright. They're going to tell you, hey, that worked or it didn't. So when you work with a child, if you adjust them and things get better, you're going to know right away. Adults tend to be like, well, I kind of think I'm better. I might be better. Kids aren't that way. They're like, no, mister, it didn't work. Okay, we'll try something else. So that's the first thing I like to do. The next thing you have to do is there's a eustachian tube in there. And sometimes that eustachian tube can get, for a lack of better words, a kink in it. It gets a little ripple or a kink in there. And there's actually a manipulation technique that I was taught years ago by one of my mentors, Howard Loomis, on how to correct the kink in the eustachian tube. Now, what's funny about this is that I was reading in a journal article quite a few years back about a gentleman who was dealing with learning disabilities in children. It was a neurologist. And he had found that if he would put in a medication to dry the ear canal out, a lot of times he would notice a change in the learning issues that the child was having. So this is interesting. Well, then a chiropractor from Northern California got a hold of him. This gentleman was in New York. Got a hold of him and said, you know what? He goes, I'll teach you how to straighten out that ear canal if you help me learn how to dry it out in a more natural way. And so they started playing around with this because his child had had some learning disorders. And so he did this work with this neurologist, and the two of them together came up with a technique. And what you found was if you can actually adjust the little ear canal itself, it's a little tug and a pull. It has to be done a certain direction. When you do that, a lot of times you'll hear an audible, and that will alleviate tons of pressure in the ear canal. And immediately it has an impact on the ear infection. So we're adjusting, we're doing a little manipulation of the ear, and now you come to nutrition. Things get in the ear canal, in the eustachian tube, and sometimes it's viral, sometimes it's bacterial. It creates a swampy, mucky environment where things can live. You've got to find a way to get in there. Now, I'm an enzyme fan. I like to support the immune system through the use of enzymes. So we use the right one for the problem involved. If it's a viral issue, you want one type of enzyme. If it's a bacterial one, you want a different type of enzyme. But knowing the bullet you need in that gun will help you alleviate the problem rather quickly. And then my favorite home remedy, the one I've been using for years that people like, garlic and mullein oil, or a sweet oil. 1 drop of garlic oil in the affected ear, 1 drop of sweet oil in the affected ear. Put a little cotton ball over it and have them just lay there. Half hour, 10 minutes, whatever you can get them to do, and try and do it twice a day. And if you can do that, the garlic is antiviral, antifungal, and antibacterial. The mullein or the sweet oil, whichever one you choose to use, soothes an irritated and inflamed ear tissue. So it calms it down, it relaxes it. So you're getting in there, supporting immune function, you're able to get rid of things with really nature's true antibiotic, garlic, and then you're getting there with a nice oil and calm it all down. Guys, if you can work these things together, if you can make this little simple modification, you can change someone's life, especially a child's, when they're miserable. In a matter of a few days, it's gone. What an easy, simple thing to do. So I love seeing kids with ear infections. They're fun to deal with, and the impact that that can have on long-term hearing, swimming issues, playing with a child, learning disabilities can be profound. It works just as well in adults, so keep this one in your back pocket for future use. I'm Dr. Sean.